Kid Food Instagram has taught us that we have to retain total control over the family meal experience because our side of the division of responsibility matters more than our kids' role. It's like, if I do sleep training, then my baby will sleep. If I do division of responsibility, then my kid will eat fruits and vegetables.
Right.
But eating competence is actually the final destination of the division of responsibility. The way that I see it is that all kids have something that is not going to line up in a perfect little box for the way that division of responsibility is presented to us. I am actually a big fan of using the division of responsibility regardless, but we have to be extremely attuned to our child's own needs.
Because it's hard to be a person with a body these days when bonkers TikTok diets are all the rage. And why are the seats so damn small on the airplane? Because it's hard to be a person with a body these days.
You're listening to Burnt Toast. I'm Virginia Soul-Smith, and today my conversation is with Diana Rice. Diana is a registered dietitian, certified intuitive eating counselor, and certified parent educator on a mission to help families enjoy a healthy relationship with food. She is the voice behind the online platform Anti-Diet Kids, which helps parents bring the concepts of intuitive eating and rejecting diet culture into raising their kids. Diana also runs Tiny Seed Family Nutrition, a weight-inclusive nutrition counseling and coaching practice for children and adults, and her Substack newsletter and podcast, The Messy Intersection, speaks to parents seeking to restore their own relationships with food while raising children with the resilience to resist dieting, enjoy a variety of foods, and embrace their natural body size. She's also co-author of the book Food Positivity: How to Ditch Diet Culture and Talk to Kids About Food. We had such a great conversation with Diana talking about her new book, Raising Anti-Diet Kids. We also get into how to talk to your kids about GLP-1 ads, snacking, and so much more. After our interview, paid subscribers can stick around for Indulgence Gospel, where Corinne and I will be answering a listener question from the Burnt Toast parenting chat about what to do when your kid is embarrassed about your body. If you're not a paid subscriber, it's just $5 to join us. Click the link in your episode description or go to burnttoastpodcast.com to join us. Here's Diana. Hi, Diana. Thanks so much for being here.
Hey, Virginia. Thanks for having me.
Oh, I'm so excited. I have been a fan of your work. I feel like we've been internet buds for a long time. I'm really thrilled to get to dive in and have a full conversation with you about all of these things that we both think about constantly.
It's a very small niche of the anti-diet space, generally speaking, is the parenting part of it. And I've always appreciated your work, and I'm really happy to be here.
Oh, thank you. Well, we are here to talk about your new book, Food Positivity: How to Ditch Diet Culture and Talk to Kids About Food, which is out now. Why don't you just start by giving us a little summary of what the book is about?
Yeah, the title kind of says it all, How to Ditch Diet Culture and Talk to Kids About Food. The way I like to describe it is when the opportunity came up to write the book, it was just so obvious to me what the topic needed to be. It's what I'm hearing from my audience all the time. Obviously, How to Ditch Diet Culture, I think that's in the subhead of your book as well, right? We need information about this. But what I hear all the time from my clients and from my social media audience is, but how do I talk to my kids about food? In my experience, I think parents get so worried about this because we are driving without a roadmap when it comes to raising our kids with attitudes about food and bodies that we didn't grow up with ourselves. Mm-hmm. It shows up in just all these little moments. It's like, your kid didn't like the snack you packed for school. Like, literally, what do you say? Or, they want to try something that in your good food, bad food brain considers unhealthy. And it's like, literally, what do you say? The reason we don't know what to say is that we ourselves are just kind of fumbling around in the dark. And, I'm generally a big fan of fake it till you make it. For example, if you, are still not comfortable with your body size, but you can at least not talk about it in front of your kids, that's great. But kids have questions when it comes to...
They really drill down, yeah.
Fruits, vegetables, quote unquote junk food, and parents want to know what to say. And so in writing the book, I think it was originally conceptualized as just a manual. If they ask this, what do you say? But I kind of realized that we have to kind of get to the core of why it's so hard for us as parents to get the language, quote unquote, right. I don't like it when parents who are really trying hard to ditch diet culture are really fixated on getting everything right, because that in and of itself kind of shoots you in the foot.
Right. Like that's what diet culture makes us do. We don't have to
exactly,
do that anymore.
Exactly.
Yeah.
As you peel away the layers of the onion, you realize that it's not about having a manual to say the right thing. It's about really starting from scratch, reevaluating what it is we're trying to do here with our kids in terms of their relationships with food and their bodies. So there's a lot of content in the book that's about looking at your child's relationship with food in a whole different way. A lot of times what I find with my audience is that they want to ditch diet culture. They want their kids to be confident in their bodies, but they still want their kid to eat all the healthy food.
Right.
And I'm a registered dietitian. I actually really want the kids to eat all the healthy food too. My approach, which is evidence-based, actually gets you to that final destination. It's just there's going to be some Oreos and Doritos in the mix.
Right. Right.
Which are not, the poison that people think that they are.
I mean, as you're talking about this, I'm just thinking about we're always caught in this push-pull, this paradox that you talk about in the book, this parenting paradox, freedom versus fear. Mm-hmm. And I do think so much of it is that diet culture programming of like, we have to do it exactly right. And as you're saying, we need to push back against that. But then on the other hand, the pendulum can swing too far in the other direction. It can suddenly feel, I hear this a lot from readers, like now we have no structure and it's a no man's land of like everyone fend for yourselves, eat whatever. And that feels really scary and unhelpful too. Talk a little bit about this paradox and like, how do we find our way through it?
Yeah. So there's quite a lot of content in the book of like, no, really, here is what you can do to find your way through it. Speaking of, peeling away the layers of the onion, what's really important to recognize, and I don't think that a lot of parents, even parents who are committed to rejecting diet culture, realize this, is that we really have to get to the core of the issue, which is our fear and the way that our fear influences our values. So there's a whole chapter in the book about really taking a hard look at your values and rejecting the ones that you likely grew up with, things like conformity, obedience, all these things that diet culture instills in us. Healthism is a big one. You have to appear to be healthy in order to achieve status.
Pursuit of thinness, obviously.
All of this stuff. You want your kid to be the one at the playground who's, snacking on blueberries and not baby puffs or whatever it is, right? So when we really peel back all of that, I think that we're sort of at a turning point where it's a have your cake and eat it too situation. We're trying to raise the anti-diet kids who love their bodies and, have a healthy relationship with food. But we want the final destination to be like a mostly thin kid who eats vegetables. That's because we're still clinging to those values of conformity and healthism. I encourage parents, and there's a whole chapter about this, to take a hard look at that and look at what you grew up with, because if we're still clinging to those values, then every word out of our mouth is actually going to stem back to those values. And so my favorite example of this, and I know that you've been a critic of this as well, is when we tell kids, eat red foods because they're good for your heart or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Carrots will help you see at night.
What we're doing here is we're not saying, eat your vegetables because it's healthy. Eat your vegetables because Doritos are bad for you. Eat your vegetables because it will help you stay thin. We know somewhere in the front of our conscious mind that we shouldn't say those things, but we're still like, dear God, the child needs to eat vegetables.
Right.
What can I say to convince the child to eat vegetables? And that's how we get into these things that aren't actually true, that carrots help you see in the dark. There's an anecdote in the book about a child who heard that at school and immediately ran into their bedroom and turned off the light and was disappointed that they ate all their carrots at lunchtime and can't see in the dark.
Here I
right?
am. It's still dark.
Vitamin A is important for eye health, but it's not going to help any of us see in the dark.
Yeah, big carrot really put on it.
And then, the red foods are good for your heart. There's a nugget of truth to that. There's a nutrient called lycopene that's in some red foods that it supports heart health, but it's not in all red foods, and it's certainly not in Doritos and Flaming Hot Cheetos and things like that.
Right. There's a preciousness in saying red foods. Like, I'm being so neutral.
Yes.
But you're still only pushing certain red foods. You're
yes.
not
The reason is because you feel so desperately that you need to get your kid to eat these vegetables. What we're not doing is trusting the kid's body is going to work it out. I'm big on, I want the parent, I mean, I know that you're a big fan of division of responsibility. We want the parent to provide vegetables on a regular basis and chocolate and ice cream and other things the kids need to habituate themselves to. What I see in parenting right now is that we don't trust that when we provide those things, the kid actually will be like, oh, cool, red peppers, let me have a bite. As a dietitian, my final destination for all my clients and all my followers is that they've got healthy, thriving kids. It's not necessarily going to be a thin kid. It's definitely not going to be a kid who never wants to eat ice cream, but it is going to be a kid who has a healthy relationship with food, avoids eating disorders, gets the nutrients they need. We just don't trust that that is possible. And the reason we don't trust it's possible is because what diet culture has done to our own brains.
Yes. I so appreciate you articulating that, like, here's actually the goal, because I think the diet culture goal is so entrenched. It can feel like, well, what do I even want then? So I appreciate that. I also want to make sure we take a beat to quickly talk about how this principle applies to kids who division of responsibility isn't a natural fit for. I'm thinking of neurodivergent kids, kids with RFID. You know, I parent kids with pretty pronounced like food trauma, picky eating stuff. And I just want to say for parents in that boat listening and being like, my kid will never be neutral about bell peppers. Like our kids may never develop the same like wide variety of food, but you can still be in a house that doesn't have a hierarchy of good foods and bad foods. Like that is still really available to us, even if they're not eating the like dream rainbow of foods that, you know, we sort of all aspire to.
Yeah, we definitely have to let go of there being any sort of benchmark of the kid, you know, like basically if you're like, I mean, your piece, I think it was years ago that you wrote it, but you wrote a piece about Instagram came for the division of responsibility.
Yes, there was a real co-option of it.
I fell off my chair when that came across my inbox. Like it was basically everything I was thinking, but I was like, here is a place on the internet that I can direct people to seeing it. Right. I think that piece is even quoted in the book.
Yes.
Kid Food Instagram has taught us that we have to retain total control over the family meal experience because our side of the division of responsibility matters more than our kids' role. It's like, you know, if I do sleep training, then my baby will sleep. If I do division of responsibility, then my kid will eat fruits and vegetables.
Right.
But eating competence is actually the final destination of the division of responsibility. And the way that I like to describe it is that it's very similar to the clinical measures we have about intuitive eating. And again, it has nothing to do with how many vegetables are you eating. But parents have a tendency to get way too into the weeds, and Instagram certainly doesn't help. So when it comes to kids with food challenges, RFID, neurodivergence, honestly, the way that I see it is that all kids have something that is not going to line up in a perfect little box for the way that division of responsibility is presented to us. I am actually a big fan of using the division of responsibility regardless, but we have to be extremely attuned to our child's own needs. There's a whole section on attunement in here. So basically, I don't want any parent being like, well, I decided that dinner is bell peppers and quinoa and baked chicken, period, end of story. You don't have to eat it. I don't want anybody doing that. I want you to be attuned to your own child's needs, which I'm sure, you know, especially with your older daughter, you've had a lot of experience with.
Kind of my full-time job.
Yes. and thinking about, you know, what does this child like? What can I put on the table that is going to make this child feel comfortable and confident? Something I always say is like, it's not called the division of privilege. It's not your privilege to get to pick what the food is. It is your responsibility to pick what the food is. And just like it's your responsibility to take care of your child in all other domains of their life, you know, with emotional attunement, having a bedtime that works for them if they struggle in school, finding, you know, ways to support their learning. It is your responsibility to figure out which food to serve them on a regular basis and when. You know, maybe they're a 3 meals a day kind of kid. Maybe they need more meal opportunities. You need to figure that out. And, you know, be putting food on the table that meets those needs for your kid. And I think that that's another thing that diet culture has taken from us, because we are not used to taking care of a human being ourselves and figuring out what that person actually needs. We are used to outsourcing that to a diet plan. And so when it comes to figuring this out for our kids, we're just flapping around in the dark. We have no idea what to do. And it gets even more compounded when they won't eat the bell peppers or whatever it is.
I think that's so helpful. I mean, it's really like, okay, if division of responsibility says parents are in charge of like which foods are offered, when they're offered, and where, I think what the sort of Instagram version of that has become is so you offer this like perfect diet culture approved meal. And even some of how Ellen wrote about it in the beginning was still like pretty prescriptive in terms of like what the meals should be. And I think where I've gone with it, and I think this very much aligns with what you're talking about, is like, well, that means I get to look at the kid in front of me. And a lot of nights, our family, it does not work for us to all eat one meal and just have bread on the table. I have a kid who won't touch bread, you know? So a lot of times in my family, dinner is like something the adults like. Kids have the option to try it, of course, but there's different kid plates happening to meet their needs at this moment. And yeah, that creates some extra work for me. And yes, it doesn't feel like perfectly aligned, but it's like, this is where we are. And when I'm still achieving the overall goal of holding up my responsibility and making space for them to have their responsibility.
Yeah, with my own kids, I do pretty much exactly what you described. And people are often surprised to hear that. I don't know whether or not Ellen Satter would be surprised to hear that. And no shade to her. I've done all her training programs. The only thing I will say, which I hope she wouldn't take as an insult, is that, she wrote her first book, Child of Mine, in the early 80s. What I do and what I think my audience needs is to translate what worked in the early 80s, and we're still coming off more, Satter's a big fan of authoritative parenting, but little sprinkles of authoritarian in there just because that's what the culture was.
Yeah. And it was divorcing from like the clean plate club stuff, which is a different place than where we are.
Yeah. And so what I do is I kind of bring this into the modern world. We are not all going to be sitting down to a family style meal 7 nights a week. We have sports. We have work deadlines. You're shuffling your kids between 2 households. It's not always going to happen. And how can we use what we know from the division of responsibility and bring that into modern parenting and support kids to develop a healthy relationship with food anyway, especially given that the, firestorm of diet culture is kind of even louder than it ever was before. Sure. So I do exactly what you're talking about. Sometimes my family is eating completely different meals because it just wasn't even going to work for us to all sit down at the table. And so it's like, hey, do you want this or this? I'll make it for you. And the kids eat it in front of the TV and my husband and I eat later. We do really try to prioritize sitting down together as much as we can. But even then, a lot of the time, it'll be like my husband and I are having a mixed dish and I've separated some of the chicken and vegetables for the kids and even thrown something on the table like garlic bread that I'm not especially planning on eating. But I know that, whatever the carb source in the meal is something they're probably not going to eat. So I want them to have something else. In my mind, that's feeding your family.
Agreed.
Taking care of your whole family's needs.
Yeah.
The version that we learn of division of responsibility from Instagram, or honestly, the way that not a lot of us are working with pediatric dietitians, but the way that it's taught just by the books, if you learn it from your doctor or your dietitian and you're not really going into a deep dive about it, then it's easy to feel like it should just be, this is the meal, period, end of story.
Yeah.
But there's so much to it that I had to write a whole book about
You wrote a whole book for it, and it's really, really helpful. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, as you said, diet culture is getting louder than ever. One of the big pieces of that now is how GLP-1s are marketed, ignoring all their other medical potentials pretty much solely as a weight loss drug. And, ads for GLP-1s, like kids are seeing these ads. They're showing up in their media. So how do we talk to our kids about this marketing?
Yeah, I think about this a lot because my audience asks me about it a lot. And honestly, my own kids see these advertisements all the time. Even if, my husband's just watching a sports game, like those are the commercials that are going to be on. The real solution is that we probably shouldn't have drug marketing at all on, on television.
Yep, that seems great. Yeah. Pharmaceuticals should not get marketing budgets. Yeah.
Since we do, I actually think it's beneficial that my kids see ads for other drugs and they're just like, the heck is that? My favorite thing, it actually happened to be like a Wegovy ad, but I think that my kid would have said this about any ad, is that the voice came on with the fine print of, may cause nausea and diarrhea, may cause, talk to your doctor if you have suicidal thoughts, blah, blah, blah. And then it goes, ask your doctor about Wegovy. And my kid goes, why would I do that when you just told me all this bad stuff it can cause?
My
I think she
8-year-old
would have said that about anything.
Yeah, but it's so true. My 8-year-old the other day was like, so how come they always say the bad stuff really fast at the end? And we had this great talk about like, well, they're trying to sell you the drug, so they want to downplay it, but they are legally obligated to tell you these things, and really helped to break down how advertising works for them, which I was like, oh, that's super important. And again, could be any drug, but we can apply that to the conversations around GLP-1s for sure.
Yeah. So I really think, and again, there's a whole chapter in the book about this, is fostering conversations about critical thinking with our kids, not only about these commercials, but about everything is going to be really helpful there in terms of anybody who's paying for a commercial on television has something to sell you. They want to convince you to buy this thing. So already there's something in it for them. But the problem, especially with the GLP-1 commercials, is that, like you said, they focus on the body size element of it. I actually have a ton of adult clients who take GLP-1s for various reasons. Given that my niche is, I'm a health at every size aligned provider, I don't facilitate weight loss for anybody, but a lot of my clients are taking them for the reasons that they were originally researched and designed for, which are blood sugar control. So to a degree, I think we can just say like, yeah, some adults have medical problems and, this is something really great that can help that. It's not any different from, metformin or those kinds of drugs. But the commercials are focusing on weight loss. What I worry about is the commercials are communicating being in a larger body is unhealthy and these drugs can help you not be in a larger body. And I think that any parent who is not really trying to reject diet culture would just easily say, well, yeah, being overweight is unhealthy and those drugs can help people with it. Like, period, end of story. That is probably not what we're telling our own kids.
Right, we want something
right?
a lot more nuanced.
Yes. And so I focus on the medical benefits of it. There's actually a lot of content in the book about not introducing age-inappropriate conversations. So I wouldn't get into like blood sugar science. I mean, maybe you wouldn't either. Like for me, like this is how my brain works because I'm a dietitian. So I have to like actively be like, do not describe the pathophysiology of type 2 diabetes to your child, right? But basically saying, adults have various medical conditions. Those drugs can help. They found that a side effect is that people may lose weight on it. A lot of people don't. That's actually true. A lot of people don't, or they don't lose a significant amount of weight, but sort of focusing more on the medical benefits. And you can even open the door to, some people find that it helps them shrink their body size. And because of diet culture, that is something that's desirable to a lot of people. But we know in our family that all bodies are good bodies and you don't have to change your body. So it's almost the same that I would talk about Instagram filters on a face with my daughter. Like, it's out there, but you're beautiful and you don't have to use it. Or I want you to be able to spot it, or I want you to be able to understand why someone would do that if they're feeling insecure about themselves. Again, it goes back to attunement and what your own child is ready for. But I am a big fan of introducing the problem of diet culture to kids in an age-appropriate way early on, the same as we're doing with, racism or gender oppression of like, yeah, this is a problem. And in our family, we don't like it and we're actively working against it. And so in that way, if you're already doing that, seeing the commercials can be an opportunity for those kinds of conversations.
Yeah, I always kind of welcome it. I know that sounds like maybe a little twisted, but I'm like, oh, okay, here's an opportunity to get into it. Like, let's have that chat. I mean, I definitely have days where I'm like, oh, I just don't want to hear another, commercial or whatever. But like, rather than being afraid of it, it's like we were already laying some foundation. Oh yeah, this is this thing we've talked about before. And it's just other opportunities. And then the kids get really good at spotting it. And I think that's so cool to see. So yeah, I love that. So to go back to some of pain points that parents have around feeding kids. I mean, your book is just so helpful on all of this. A topic that comes up a lot on Burnt Toast is snacks and snacking. I mean, the New York Times wrote about my kids' snack drawer in our pantry, so I'm very aware of the stigma around snacking and how people feel about it. I would love to sort of get your like big picture thoughts on snacks. And then I want to talk about like the two most common issues, which is like the right before dinner snacking and then the like more snacks at bedtime stalling tactic that kids use. Because I find both of those are moments where parents who are like trying to be anti-diet, trying to be inclusive around food, suddenly realize they have to use a little restriction and it feels bad.
Well, I think the stigma around snacking comes straight from, when we think about conventional diet culture and adults, especially women, trying to avoid extra calories. You can follow your salad for lunch and your baked chicken for dinner, but then the potato chips are calling to you, right? Mm-hmm. The stigma comes from the idea of, if we're out of control with snacking, we're going to gain weight and bad, right? My overall take on snacks is to make it, again, part of the division of responsibility. First of all, kids are growing. They need calories. They need carbohydrates. Mm-hmm. And snacks often are carb-based. Depending on how old your kid is, I'm actually big on, for a 4-year-old, you're going to be like, this is snack time. Hopefully sitting down at the table, having our Cheez-Its or whatever it is, and this is snack time. My kids are 9 and 11. We're kind of floating into the territory of, I want them to make their own snack decisions.
I really want them to stop asking me for snacks.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
That's like a big goal.
Because, again, the final destination is kids who become adults who have a healthy relationship with food who can be like, oh, I'm a little hungry. I'm going to grab a snack. Like, mm-hmm. That's the goal.
Right. And know how to do that and not feel freaked out about it. Yeah.
Yes. So basically, I'm big on the parent needs to take the responsibility early on. And this is no different from what we do with bedtime or even potty training of like, here is a skill you do not have. And I am going to step in and be the grown-up and create an environment for you where you can develop these skills for yourself, right? Mm-hmm. And so with bedtime, it's story and song and then lights out. And we do that every night. And eventually kids get with the program. But like, again, attunement, like maybe your kid needs more cuddles. And, there can't just be like, lights out, why are you not going to bed? Like, you have to be
why are you not
asleep? So maybe one kid needs a parent to stay with them or whatever it is, right? So division of responsibility is actually how we do that in the kids' early years. And then, just like my 11-year-old would be like, I'm really tired. I'm going to bed, right? The same thing is I want her to be able to be like, oh, I'm kind of hungry right now. I'm going to grab a snack, right? Mm-hmm. But if your kids are younger than that, or if they haven't had this kind of support, not because of any fault of the parent, but because diet culture comes in and says, we are going to corrupt how you do this.
Right.
So basically, mm-hmm. I'm a big fan of having the foods that the kids find desirable in the house. One reason that parents complain that like their kid wants nothing but potato chips is that the kid never actually gets to have potato chips, right? And so part of it is it's your responsibility to go to the store and buy the thing that your kid is asking for, even if you don't think it's a nutritious food, even if it is conventionally just, putting my dietitian hat on, not the most nutritious food in the world. Mm-hmm. It is still your job to go and buy it unless there's like some, religious or ethical reason why your family or food allergies, things like that, your family can't have the food. And then incorporate it into meals and snacks so that your kid becomes relaxed around it. And then that in and of itself will make it so that they're not so fixated on it. I cannot buy those multi-packs of like Frito-Lay with like the Doritos and the Fritos because my kids, they won't eat the Cool Ranch Doritos.
Oh, yeah.
They'll only eat the regular Doritos. And they won't eat the Fritos, but they'll eat the Cheetos or something like that. And it's just like, I have a whole pantry full of quote-unquote junk food that my kids won't eat, right?
Yeah, so-called addictive foods
that
I couldn't sell it to them.
Every time I hear that business about it being addictive, I am just like, my pantry would be empty if that was a thing. When I want a snack and it's like 11 p.m., I'm not getting the Doritos that I have in there. I'm getting cheese and olives and crackers, like stuff that's like really good and satisfying to me. I could care less about the Cheeto. But so part of it is taking away the allure of these snack foods by, never serving them at all, with intuitive eating. It's big on habituation. And bringing that in, and the parents actually actively, especially when the kids are young, and it's your job to schedule the snacks, being like, today's snack is, crackers with peanut butter and Doritos, right? Or whatever it is that the kid wants. It doesn't have to be every day. You can change it to, something with a different nutrient profile the next day. But that in and of itself takes away a lot of the allure of the snacks. But also, the reason the kids are asking for snacks all the time is often that they didn't get enough food. We have this concept in our mind of what would be an appropriate amount of food, and we don't know. We don't know what their individual body needs. We don't know if they're going through a growth spurt. And so it's really important that we're providing lots of food on a regular basis. And so if your kids are asking for snacks all the time throughout the day, especially in the summer when their schedule is not as consistent, that is a sign that you need to have a planned snack time. Like, my kids are not getting enough food. I'm thinking about like food noise. Your brain is going to be like snack, 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 when your body doesn't have enough food. And so it's really important, especially because our kids are not going to be as attuned to their own physical needs, same as you might remind a 5-year-old who is fully potty trained, like, hey, do we want to stop and use the potty before we get in the car? It's our job until they are teenagers and can do this for themselves to be like, hey, it's snack time. Let's sit down and have this. And going back to the division of responsibility, if you're doing that on a regular basis, you can also feel confident in saying no to a different snack request, because it's like, no, we had a whole big old snack 1 hour ago, dinner's in 30 minutes. I want the parent to be confident that the kid actually did get enough food, and that should help you feel like it's not restriction when you do say, no, dinner's in 30 minutes, we're not having a snack right now.
Yeah, yeah. And just know you might have to really, like, your kid's allowed to have feelings about that.
Yes, exactly, yes.
And we're not saying they'll be like, oh, thank you for that information.
Yes.
That makes sense.
Yes. They're not, but what I find, and this is mind-blowing to parents who are not nearly as far along in this journey. I have the immense privilege of having been doing this since my kids were born, and my kids didn't have any specific feeding challenges. When you've been doing it consistently enough, I often compare it to your kid might fight bedtime, but once you get them into the bed, they're like, oh, this is kind of nice, right? Like, I'm glad I'm here. And so I find that when I decline a food request for a good reason for my kids, they're like, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Right? They're not like, thank you, dearest mother, but they're like, I'll be like, dinner's coming up. I'm making this thing you really like. I want you to have an appetite for it. They're like, okay. Because they trust that I'm doing that to take care of them and not to restrict them. And that's what it all hinges on. But another thing I would say is sometimes we just miss the mark in terms of like, did our kid get enough food and a snack? And so if dinner's in 30 minutes, I will either, if it's ready enough to just like make them a portion and, have them sit at the table and eat their portion earlier, or, put out some veggies and ranch on the table. Or sometimes if dinner is like just really not ready, I'll be like, you know what, go grab a bag of goldfish. I mean, it is helpful for kids to be able to tolerate hunger for like 20 minutes if food is definitely coming. I mean, we do that as adults as well. If they eat the garlic bread at dinner or the goldfish right now, like nutritionally, it's kind of all the same.
Yeah, it's a wash.
And I don't have a whiny, complaining kid who's bothering me while I'm trying to make dinner. Right?
Yeah. That's such a helpful framing. I think that's like knowing you can have the overall structure and you can make these game time calls. The other week, my younger kiddo was losing their mind about wanting snacks before dinner. And then I realized she had missed morning snack at school for some reason. Like, she hadn't had her snack. And I was like, oh, yeah, your like cumulative hunger is probably higher today because you missed that. Like, sometimes you do have to do a little detective work of like, why is it so intense tonight? Oh, okay, that's fair. And,
yeah, exactly. And a lot of parents miss that. And a lot of my pediatric clients, I kind of sort of take a magnifying glass to what they're eating throughout the day. And I find that they might be having snack like at school, but breakfast is a rush because, they barely eat breakfast because they're getting out the door. They're having snack at school, but it's not quite enough. And I'm like, they're not like just inherently obsessed with snacks. They're literally not getting enough food earlier in the day, which is the exact same thing that dieters do when they're trying to be good all day. It gets to the end of the day and you're like, why am I so out of control about food? And, if that's been your own personal experience, you're going to assume that that's also what's happening with your kid. When in reality, if we can sort of adjust the schedule so that the kid gets more substantial food earlier in the day, then the gas tank is just full when they get to the end of the day, and it's just less of a problem. I was thinking, as I said, that thing about like, what does it matter if they eat goldfish 30 minutes before dinner or garlic bread at the table? The conventional parental fear is going to be like, but they're going to eat both. They're going to eat both, and it's going to be too many calories, and they're going to get fat. Generally speaking, and we know this from intuitive eating, is that when you've gotten enough calories, for the most part, you stop eating, right? But that's the fear that all of us living in diet culture have, is that, no, there's no such thing. There's no such thing as stopping eating because you're full, because we're consistently undernourished.
Yeah.
because we're dieting.
Totally. And also, it's not the end of the world if they eat goldfish and garlic bread.
Yeah, no, it's really not.
It's fine.
They're just a growing kid. They might have eaten 2 pieces of garlic bread and now they eat 1. They might eat just as much of both. And also the thing is, ideally, it's not happening every night because you use that as information of, oh, my kid's not getting, this is exactly what we do with intuitive eating. And we're like, oh, I was really hungry going into dinner. I guess my lunch wasn't big enough. I'm going to add more food to my lunch. We do that on behalf of our kids when we collect this information about what is going on with them and their hunger patterns. So maybe they eat double carbs one night. One, that's just not a big deal, generally speaking. But also, it's probably not going to happen 7 days a week because you, as the parent, are going to do your job of feeding your kid on a regular basis.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. All right, I've got one listener question that we have time for, and then we're going to do butter. So this question comes from Chrissy, who writes, looking for some advice. My 9-year-old just had his annual well visit, and his weight has spiked exponentially the past 2 years. He's understandably sensitive about it, so I'm struggling to find the right way to communicate with him. His doctor wants him to see an endocrinologist next week to check his thyroid. I'm sure it'll mean blood tests and the awkward dance around the word obesity between his doctor and me while he's there. Any advice for how to protect him while making sure he's getting the help he may need?
Yeah, that is really tough. And the thing is, it wouldn't be nearly as tough if we weren't living in this, anti-fat society. Exactly. I think about if the kid had lost 20 pounds, we would immediately be like, let's get this kid to a doctor. Let's see what's going on. Is it an eating disorder? Is it type 1 diabetes? Like, what's going on here?
And we wouldn't feel the same shame.
It would be like, there's something going on with my kid. Let's help him get some help. Now, I don't want to immediately say that weight gain, generally speaking, is like a medical issue that we immediately need to get an explanation for. We do know from research on pediatric weight gain, and especially through the Ellen Satter lens, is that, whether your kid is on the 85th percentile or the 10th percentile, we generally see them growing in that general range for the duration of their childhood. That's just genetics. But when we see a big jump in either direction, that's when we should get curious about what's going on. So if a kid did jump that much and they were way off of their percentile, that's an indication. Often what we see is something like the parents are getting divorced, the kid is getting bullied at school, the kid is trying to diet, but they're binging and gaining weight from that instead. So those are all things that we would want to support the child. We want to sort of resolve the emotional element of the situation, not because weight gain is terrible, but because having a kid whose emotions are not supported is terrible, right?
Right.
So the first thing I encourage, and I hope the kid's doctor will do this as well, is to, kind of rule something like that out. And then if it is more of a biological thing, I would encourage the parent to frame it as, if your kid had any other medical issue going on, of course you want your kid to get treatment for that. It doesn't necessarily mean weight loss, but if they have a hormone issue or something like that, this is the criticism that Health at Every Size gets all the time, is that it's just ignoring medical stuff. And it's like, no matter what's going on with your kid, we want them to get medical treatment for it. So hopefully that's what the doctor is going to explore. Now, that doesn't erase that the kid is feeling their feelings around it. And so I would recommend to the parent first to be having those conversations about anti-fat bias. And it is not cool. Bodies change. Bodies are all different sizes. It is not cool for anyone to be making fun of you for it. And this is in the book as well, is, sort of unconditional trust for your child and respect for your child's body. And so if they know that you as the parent are like, I love you, I think you're beautiful, we're going to buy you clothes that you feel awesome in, that coming from the home environment will go so far. It's not a magic eraser, but it will go really far in the kid feeling loved and confident. And so the parent kind of talking about like, okay, maybe you do have this medical thing going on and it means you're going to be in a bigger body. And, it happens. I have to take medication for my thyroid. That's a problem that I have, right? We all have something. And kind of just supporting the kid and knowing we've all got these different medical things and some of them relate to body size, and that wouldn't be a problem if we didn't live in an anti-fat culture. I love you no matter what. Ideally, the doctor that you're working with is very supportive of all that too, and, is going to help them get to the bottom of it. And then certainly no conversations about food restriction. Sometimes these conditions involve changing the food pattern. But if the doctor suggests dieting, then get out of there. There's actually a whole chapter in the book about that too.
Yeah. Great. Well, we're definitely going to link to the book so folks can get more advice on navigating that piece of things. All right, so we wrap up with butter, which is our recommendation segment. Diana would love to know what your butter is today.
So I've been thinking about this, and something that I have been telling all my friends about, just something that comes to mind for me that is like, oh my gosh, more people need to know about this. There is an app I've been using called Alta, A-L-T-A.
Okay.
It is one of these wardrobe apps. I've tried various ones and they're just like thumbs down. This one is awesome, and it's probably because it uses a lot of AI. It's not like generative AI writing your book for you, right? It's like you take photos of everything that's in your wardrobe, or if you're like me and you buy all your clothes online, you just go into your order history and you screenshot everything. You upload those to the app, and then it will generate outfits for you. And you can even have it put the outfits onto an avatar.
Okay, this is fun.
I know,
it's the Clueless closet. That
it is.
exists.
They actually use that in their marketing, but
That's
it's like it actually
cool.
works. It's like 30 years later, we actually have the technology. It's exactly the Clueless closet. You can build little outfits. You can put them on an avatar, and you can upload your face to it if you want to. I haven't done that. I've also found that the avatar, like I put in my actual height and weight. That is not what my body looks like. I put in a higher weight. It still really wasn't what my body looks like. So I can only imagine that somebody in an even bigger body than me is not going to get an accurate avatar. But you know, when Instagrammers are trying to get you to buy their clothes and they have like the shirt, the shoes, the necklace, and it's just kind of all on a white background. I like the way that looks better anyway.
Yeah.
I have seriously been like, oh my gosh, what am I going to wear today? Like, and I will open the app and the first outfit it suggests, I'm like, oh, yeah, problem solved.
Problem solved.
And it's just,
I love that.
And it's
I want to
fun,
try it
and
for
it's
like packing for vacation.
Yeah, there's a whole tab where you can create vacation lists and stuff like that. Yeah,
I'm
really
trying
cool.
this out. That's great. Well, my butter is an idea I heard from an Instagram parenting influencer. So just to be clear that even though I critique the genre, there are many that I'm big fans of.
Yeah.
And I really like the Workspace for Children is one I've been following lately. And I think her name is Lizzie. She talks a lot about coffee table toys. Have you heard about this idea?
No, I haven't.
Where basically as your kids are getting older, you're parenting 9 and 11, mine are almost 9 and almost 13, like they don't play as much as they did when they were younger, and we don't have like the playroom full of stuff set up in the same way anymore. But she's a big advocate for like continuing to keep a few simple toys out on your coffee table, because if it's out and it's visible, your kids will pick it up. And she likes kind of fidgety things. There's this one called Plus Plus we've just gotten that's like little plastic plus signs that slot together and you make different shapes.
Yeah.
Like Legos would be a great one. Magnetiles, like we'll still pull out our old Magnetiles, like that kind of thing. But it's been really cool to see like just having one thing out, and I kind of casually rotate them. Don't really talk about it, because if I say it's a good idea, it's not a good idea. Just like throw it out on the coffee table. I notice like the kids and their friends do spend more time like before they go off for the Roblox marathon. They'll spend like 20, 30 minutes doodling around with the toy, and it's just been really fun to see. So
I love that. I'm
yeah, coffee table toys is my new thing I'm into for this, especially for summer. It seems really helpful.
Awesome.
Well, this was wonderful. Thank you so much for being here. Diana, tell folks where we can find you and how we can support your work.
My online handle is Anti-Diet Kids. That's where I'm a parenting influencer on Instagram.
And one I really like.
Oh, thank you. It is really pulling teeth to get myself to post, which is good, I think, because I'm not like sharing every lunch and every outfit and everything.
Right.
The reason I don't post all that much there is that I've got a really active Facebook group called Raising Anti-Diet Kids, which is like the place to go. I think it's like Facebook/groups/Anti-Diet Kids, the place to go if you were like, my kid has gained weight and now we have a doctor's appointment and I don't know what to do. That is the place to go. And I'm very active in the group, but not just my opinion, but parents who've been there before. So that's where I am online. My website is antidietkids.com, and my nutrition counseling practice is Tiny Seed Family Nutrition, which is where I do medical nutrition therapy if your kid has, you know, whether it's picky eating or, you know, high triglycerides or anything like that. I also do parent coaching, which is when it's not really your child's medical condition that you need help with. It is your own attitude about food. And some of my favorite clients are people who have done their own work with another intuitive eating dietitian or therapist and just don't quite know how to translate it to their kids. And we really get into the weeds on that. And I love doing that.
Amazing. We will link to all of that. Thank you so much for being here. This was wonderful.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Okay, next up we have Indulgence Gospel, our new bonus segment for paid subscribers. Today, Virginia and I are going to answer a listener question from the Burnt Toast parenting chat about what to do when your kid is embarrassed about your body. Free list? You won't want to miss this. Click the link in your episode description or go to burnttoastpodcast.com to join us. You've been listening to Burnt Toast. If you'd like to support the show, follow us for free in your podcast player. And if you have a second, please leave a little note about why you love Burnt Toast. Your reviews really help new listeners find conversations like these.
The Burnt Toast podcast is hosted by Virginia Soul-Smith and Corinne Fay. You can follow me on Instagram and Threads at @the_Soul-Smith. Follow Corinne on Instagram at SelfieFay and on Patreon at Big Undies.
This podcast is produced by Kim Baldwin. You can follow Kim at The Blonde Mule on all platforms and subscribe to her newsletter at theblondemule.com. The Burnt Toast logo is by Deanna Lowe. Our theme music is by Faraday.
Our video editor is Elizabeth Ayiku, who also runs the Me Little Me Foundation, a virtual food pantry supporting multiply marginalized folks recovering from eating disorders. Learn more and donate at melittlemefoundation.org. And Tommy Heron is our audio engineer. Thanks for listening and for supporting anti-diet, body liberation journalism.